Hi, Tanukis. I hope you're all well and staying safe at home. I'm sorry I didn't put up a video yesterday. I was in school teaching, and by the time I got home after teaching nursery all day, I was dead. Anyone who teaches or works with younger children, my hat goes off to you. That was exhausting. Right, we're on to the last chapter, which is chapter 12, and it's called The End of the Adventure. 6 figures went up the snowy lane. 2 boys in dark overcoats, 2 in curious white garments and caps. Garments and another word for clothes, essentially. A dog in a draggled white coat, and a proud and beautiful horse. All the boys had gleaming white faces and looked extremely queer, but as they didn't meet anyone, it didn't matter. Peter talked Peter talked hard as he went, telling all that had happened to him and Jack. Colin and George listened in astonishment, half jealous that they too had not shared in the whole of the night's adventure. "I'm going to put Kerry Blue into one of the stables at our farmhouse," said Peter. "He'll be all right now. What a shock for the men to find him gone. And tomorrow we'll tell the police. Meet at 9:30 and collect Pam and Barbara on the way, will you? This really has been a wonderful mystery. I do think that the Secret Seven have done well for themselves. Goodness, I'm tired. I shall be asleep in 2 shakes of a duck's tail." They were all in bed and asleep in under half an hour. Janet was fast asleep when Peter got in. He had carefully stabled Kerry Blue, who was now quite docile and friendly. Docile is kind of like calm for an animal. You wouldn't really call a human docile, generally. In the morning, what an excitement. Peter told his father and mother what had happened, and his father, in amazement, went to examine Kerry Blue. "He's a very fine racehorse," he said, "and he's been dyed with some kind of brown stuff, as you can see. I expect those fellows meant to sell him and race him under another name." "Well, you've stopped that, you and your society, Peter." "What about getting on to the police now?" said the children's mother anxiously. "It does seem to me that they ought to be after these men at once." "There's a meeting of the Secret Seven down in the shed at 9:30, said Peter. "Perhaps the police could come to it." So remember, this is set in like the 40s, where they wouldn't have had a lot of phones in their homes. They couldn't just call the police as we would now. "Oh no, I hardly think the police would want to sit on your flower pots and boxes," said Mummy. "You must all meet in Daddy's study. That's the proper place." So, at 9:30, when the 7 were all waiting in great excitement, and Scamper was going quite mad, biting a corner of the rug, the bell rang and in walked 2 big policemen. They looked most astonished to see so many children sitting around in a ring. "Good morning," said the inspector. What's this all about? You didn't say much on the phone, sir." "Oh, forgive me, they do have phones." No, I wanted you to hear the story from the children," said Peter's father. He unfolded the morning paper and laid it out flat on the table. The children crowded round. On the front page was a big photograph of a lovely horse. Underneath it were a few sentences in big black letters. "Kerry Blue stolen," it's written in capitals there. "Famous racehorse disappears. No sign of his hiding place." "I expect you saw that this morning," said Peter's father. "Peter, tell him where Kerry Blue is." "In our stables," said Peter, and thoroughly enjoyed the look of utter amazement that came over the faces of the 2 policemen. They got out notebooks. "This is important, sir," said the inspector to Peter's father. "Can you vouch for the fact that you've got the horse?" "Oh, yes, there's no doubt about it," said Peter's father. "You can see him whenever you like. Peter, tell your story." "We're going to take it in turns to tell bits," said Peter. He began. He told about how they had made snowmen in the field. Then Jack went on to tell how he had gone to look for his Secret 7 badge in the field, and how he had seen the car in its trailer van. "Of course, I now know that it was a horse box," he said. "But I didn't know then. I couldn't think what it was. It looked like a small removal van or something, and I couldn't see any proper windows either." So the story went on, how they had interviewed the caretaker and what he had said, how they had tracked the car down to the field gate and up the lane again. Then how 4 boys had dressed up as snowmen with Scamper and gone to watch. Then came the exciting bit about Peter and Jack creeping into the house to find the prisoner and being caught themselves. And then Colin and George took up the tale and told how they would in their turn went into the old house to find Jack and Peter. "Adventurous kids, aren't they?" said the inspector with a twinkle in his eye, turning to Peter's mother. "Very," she said, "but I don't approve of this night-wandering business, Inspector. They should have all been in bed and asleep." "Quite," said the inspector. "I agree with you. They should have told the police, no doubt about that, and let them solve the mystery. Wandering about at night dressed up as snowmen, I've never heard anything like it." He spoke in such a severe voice that the children felt quite alarmed. Then he smiled, and they saw that actually he was very pleased with them. "I'll have to go find out the name of the owner of the old house, he said, and see if he knows anything about these goings-on. It's a Mr. Holocaust, 64 Hakem Street, Covilty, said George at once. We, Pam and I, found that out. Good work, said the inspector, and the other policeman wrote down the address down at once. Very good work indeed. I suppose they don't know the number of the car, do they? Asked the second policeman. That will be a help. No, said Colin regretfully, but the other two girls here know something about the horse box, sir. They even took measurements of the tyres and even drew a copy of the pattern on it. It showed in the snow, you see. Janet did that, said Barbara honestly, wishing she hadn't laughed at Janet for doing it. Janet produced the paper on which she had drawn the pattern and taken the measurements. The inspector took it at once, looking very pleased. Splendid. Couldn't be better. It's no good looking for tracks today, of course, because the snow's all melted. This is a very, very valuable piece of evidence. Dear me, what bright ideas you children have. Janet was scarlet with pleasure. Peter looked at her and smiled proudly. She was a fine sister to have, a really good member of the Secret Seven. Well, these children seem to have done most of the work for us, said the inspector, shutting his notebook. They've got the address of the owner, and if he happens to have a horse box in his possession, whose tyres match these measurements and his pattern, then he'll have to answer some very awkward questions. The police went to see Kerry Blue. The children crowded into the stable too, and Kerry Blue put his ears back in alarm. But Peter soon soothed him. Yes, he's been partly dyed already, said the inspector, feeling his coat. If he'd had one more coat of colour, he'd be completely disguised. I suppose these fellows meant to come along and do that tonight, and then take him off to some other stable. But of course they had to hide him somewhere safe while they changed the colour of his coat, and so they chose the cellars of the old empty house, belonging to Mr. J. Holocaust. Well, well, well. I wonder what he knows about it. The children could hardly wait to hear the end of the adventure. They heard about it at the very next meeting of the Secret Seven, which was called, not by the members themselves, but by Peter's father and mother. It was held in the shed, and the two grown-ups had the biggest box as a seat. Janet and Peter sat on the floor. Well, said Peter's father, Mr. Holocaust is the owner of the horse box, and of the car as well. The police waited in the old house for the two men last night, and they came. They are now safely under lock and key. They were so surprised when they found Kerry Blue gone that they hardly struggled at all. Who does Kerry Blue belong to, Daddy? Said Peter. The paper said he was owned by Colonel James Headley. Is he sending someone to fetch him? Yes, said his father. He's sending off a horse box for him today. A horse box, kind of a trailer for horses. And he has also sent something for the Secret Seven. Perhaps you'd like to see what it is, Peter. Peter took an envelope from his father and opened it. Out fell a shower of tickets. Janet grabbed one. Ooh, a circus ticket and a pantomime ticket too. Are there 7 of each? There were. 2 lovely treats for everyone except Scamper. But he can have a big, delumptious, scrumlicious bone, can't he, Mummy? Cried Janet, hugging him. Whatever are you talking about? Is that some foreign language? Asked her mother in astonishment, and everyone laughed. On the envelope was written, for the Secret Seven Society, with my thanks and best wishes, J.H. How awfully decent of him, said Peter. We didn't want any reward at all. The adventure was enough reward. It was super. Well, we'll leave you to talk about it, said his mother, getting up. Or else we shall find that we belong to your society too. And that's if the secret not... And that's it... Excuse me, I'll start that one again. Or else we shall find that we belong to your society too. And that's it, the Secret 9 instead of the Secret 7. No, it's the Secret 7, said Peter firmly. The best society in the world. Hurrah for the Secret 7. That's the end of the book. What did you guys think? Right, before we go to our next book on Monday, I'm just going to show you the cover again, and I'm going to read the blurb to you so you can have a think about what it's going to be like. So it's called Kensuke's Kingdom by Michael Morpoko. I heard the wind above me in the sails. I remember thinking, this is silly. You haven't got your safety harness on. You haven't got your life jacket on. You shouldn't be doing this. I was in the cold of the sea before I could even open my mouth to scream. Washed, and that's kind of a quote from the book, so it's not really what the story is about, really. Washed up on an island in the Pacific, Michael struggles to survive on his own. With no food and no water, he curls up to die. When he wakes, there's a plate beside him of fish, of fruit, and a bowl of fresh water. He is not alone. There's 2 nice, what's called an ellipsis, ... something to come up. So what do you think that book is going to be about? Have a think, and you can talk about it with an adult at home. And have a good weekend, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.